Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie on the weekend of December the 2nd and December the 3rd, 2023. In this video, I want to talk a little bit about King Charles. There's been a lot of stuff going on about the royal family, particularly in light of this book, Endgame, by this man Scobie. I did actually want to do his chart, but I looked around and what's his name? Omid Scobie. I looked around for details about his chart. I couldn't find a date of birth. There's even some dispute about how old he is. So, it would have been a good chart to look at. I don't know. I can't really find anything. So what I want to do in this video is really look at King Charles's chart. I don't really want to go into the specifics of the various allegations made in the book Endgame. I just want to really look at what's going on in his chart, perhaps what the year ahead is going to be like for him, see if there are any short-term dramas in his life. Clearly there are short-term dramas in his life, but are these short-term dramas being shown up by the astrology? But before I do that, I want to do the astrology and the I Ching for this weekend, December the 2nd and December the 3rd, 2023. So this is the chart set for the weekend. I've taken midnight on Sunday, sort of a midway point between the weekend, between the beginning of a weekend and the end of a weekend. And we can see that the moon is in Leo. In fact, the moon is going to be in Leo throughout the weekend. Now, if you're in New York, the moon will go into Virgo on sort of Sunday night at 10:50 p.m. So there'll only be an hour and 10 minutes left of a weekend by the time the moon changes sign. If you're in Los Angeles, the moon will go into a Virgo at 7:50 p.m. on Sunday night. So yeah, there'll be a time in the evening in the Americas when the moon will be in Virgo, but effectively the moon is going to be in Leo the whole weekend. So with the moon in Leo throughout the weekend, I think a lot of us are going to have an emotional need for attention. It's certainly in the northern hemisphere. It's winter is fast approaching. We may need some warmth, maybe emotional warmth, and getting attention is perhaps what we're looking for this weekend. Being appreciated. Unfortunately, the moon is not actually very strong in Leo. It has no dignity in the sign of Leo. That's not surprising. Leo is just too bright. It's too bright for the moon. It wants attention, but it's not able to really force it through. So it's very different energy from the sun in Leo. The sun in Leo is really strong. The sun rules Leo. But the sun certainly has dignity in Leo, but the moon doesn't have any dignity in Leo. So a lot of us may be feeling a bit fragile and, dare I say it, unloved. That can be a moon in Leo, a feature of having moon in Leo. And we perhaps need to consider the possibility that some people do have quite fragile egos. And so I think we need to look after the people around us and, if possible, give people praise. It's really difficult. It's, for a lot of us to giving people praise. Certainly difficult for me. I find it really difficult to give people praise just like that. Maybe that's because I'm a Gemini. I sort of, you sort of analyze it. Yeah, I remember, a long time ago, God, I was doing this, I don't know what I was doing. I was doing some psychological course, psychotherapy course, and the idea was that you were supposed to go to talk to the next person to you. You were supposed to give them a piece of praise, You had to go around in a circle, one person giving the other person some praise. Then it came to me. I completely froze. I just couldn't do it. It was one of the most embarrassing things in my entire life. But yeah, giving people praise can be difficult, but we need to really make the effort this weekend. So there's the moon in Leo. Mercury is now exactly sextile Saturn. That's on Saturday. Mercury's in Capricorn. It's sextile Saturn. That's incredibly disciplined. We can really do some good, solid mental work, studying, reading. And I know people don't read anymore, but if you can do some reading, that would be great. So if there's something you need to find out about, now is the time to do it. If you're a student, you're doing some kind of course, then having Mercury sextile Saturn is going to really help you in terms of covering a lot of ground, and most importantly, understanding it. Mercury is also the planet of communication, so we can communicate with great efficiency. We can really get our message across. We won't use too many words, but people will absolutely understand what we're trying to say. So yeah, I do think that is very fortunate. Also on Saturday, the moon, there's the moon at 18 Leo. It's making a trine to the sun, so that's sort of healthy, life affirming. The feminine and the masculine are all sort of well balanced. So in a social sense, I think that looks good. Sunday is possibly not such an easy day as Saturday. Sunday, the moon continues to be in Leo. We can still feel Mercury making that sextile aspect to Saturn, but Venus, you can see here's Venus 2809 Libra. Venus will be making a square aspect to Pluto. So Venus is a planet of relationships, so there could be a fair amount of intensity on Sunday, and relationships could suddenly get a little complicated. People may not want to give everything away in terms of how they're feeling, and there could be complications. Venus and Pluto can, in some certain circumstances, be quite obsessive, at least on an emotional level. So probably on Sunday we need to steer clear of obsessive people, and if we're an obsessive person ourselves, we do need to get to grips with things. Obsession is it can be a dangerous thing, so we need to untangle any obsessiveness that we might feel, particularly about other people. So that's the weekend. I don't think it's actually going to be a very dramatic weekend. Just look after other people, understand that other people have fragile egos, give the people around you as much praise as you can. If from your point of view, from our point of view, if you're not getting enough praise, or you feel people are not appreciating you, I don't take it to heart. It's just that with a moon in Leo, you might have an extra need for praise, and right now it may be a little difficult to get that praise, but don't take it personally, and things will perhaps be easier next week when the moon moves out of Leo. So that's the weekend. I now want to do my forecasts of the 12 signs for this weekend. So these are my forecasts. these are my forecasts for the weekend. For the weekend of December the 2nd and December the 3rd, 2023. Aries. Over the weekend, the moon moves through a very creative part of your solar chart. There are lots of things you want to do, and you could be impatient. And as a result, there might be explosions or displays of incredible stubbornness. So, by all means, do what you like, but you must know when to stop. Taurus. Venus, your ruler, is starting to change signs. Okay, it doesn't change signs this weekend, but it's on Sunday, but it happens on Monday. So the change is nigh. And right now, Venus is also, it's square Pluto, and soon it's going to move into Scorpio. You're starting to take the world more seriously, and you'll be more careful about what you say and do, because small actions of an interpersonal nature can have big and complicated implications. Gemini. You're in a serious mood. You feel that there are things that need to be done, and you don't want to waste time on frivolities. Not everyone is going to appreciate your approach, and this might cause some friction. But you can probably avoid having arguments by choosing your words very carefully. Cancer. You can't expect everyone to agree with each other. There will be times when there are differences of opinion, perhaps relating to money. You'll have strong ideas about how financial matters should be organised, and so will everyone else. It's perhaps not a good idea to give advice. Leo. You're quite determined. You almost feel that you have a mission and that there are particular targets you must achieve. You can be successful provided you're not overambitious, because if you try to achieve too much, you might alienate yourself from other people. Nonetheless, your ability to spring a surprise could serve you well. Virgo. This weekend, you don't actually have to engage, at least in a social sense. You can take the view that your help is not wanted and that other people can look after themselves. And then, in your own quiet way, you can make up for lost time. And on the way, some Virgoans might have a stunning realization. Libra. It's an exciting weekend when there'll be lots of things going on. But you don't have to be everywhere. You can choose what you want to do, and you can decide which people you want to hang out with. And because Venus is making a square aspect to Pluto, you need to be wary of individuals who are obsessed with their own power. Scorpio. Plans can always be disrupted. You think you have sorted everything out when the last thing you expect happens. And perhaps it has something to do with other people behaving in a completely unexpected way. So if you're making plans, you have to idiot-proof the whole process and assume that promises will be broken. Sagittarius. You want to be free to pursue your own causes, but something is holding you back. You're ready to reach out to new horizons, but boring, routine matters can appear when you least expect it, and this spoils the party. Perhaps you need to be more resilient. Just because you're disturbed doesn't mean that you have to start from scratch. Capricorn. It should be a good weekend, provided you're making your own plans and you don't allow yourself to do things other people's way. You'll cover a lot of ground and you'll be able to separate the wheat from the chaff. But if you get involved with other people and their projects, then the weekend could soon go pear-shaped. Aquarius. It's a similar situation to that of Capricorn's. Self-reliance is going to be important, or at least self-reliance could be the key to a successful weekend. But unlike with Capricorns, other people can't be avoided, and at some level you'll have to deal with their dramas. But in the process, at least one relationship can be strengthened. Pisces. Your star sign has a reputation for being chaotic, and if this is the case, it won't be a typical Piscean weekend. You're very much in control, and with Mercury aspecting Saturn, you'll be able to organize your immediate environment and the people within it. While it might not be an exciting weekend, it will certainly be satisfying. So I'm now going to move to the I Ching. And so, as always, I ask the question, what is this weekend going to be like for people watching this video? And the first hexagram I got was hexagram 40, deliverance. So, there is something we need to be delivered from, we need to get rid of. Something has been weighing our life down, something has perhaps been making us miserable, just a constant aggravation. Maybe it's people, quite possibly, could be people. But it's just been weighing on us, our mind, and now, this weekend, we have a chance to get rid of it. So what is it? What is it that you need to get rid of? What is it that you need to distance yourself from? You need to stop it from becoming a central part of your life. And there is a moving line here. This second line moves. And the symbolism with this second line is 3 foxes. And these 3 foxes can be disposed of. These 3 foxes might be symbolic of 3 people. 3 people, they may be flatterers, they may be people who really don't wish us well. And we have a chance to get rid of these 3 foxes. But, I'm not saying you have to get rid of 3 people in your life. You might just need to get rid of, might be a pile of garbage. It might be, I don't know, a car that's been malfunctioning for years, and you finally, it's a complete pile of garbage, a pile of scrap, and you finally decide now's the time to get rid of it. Look around, think about what you can get rid of, or rather what you need to get rid of, because I think there's one thing in your life. I mean, think about it. What's spoiling your life? What would make your life better? Obviously, this is an I Ching reading for the weekend. You can't expect every single weekend to be massively dramatic. So, in this short period of time, what would make your week better? What could you do this weekend? Getting rid of one thing. Just ask yourself, what is it? And then, yes, you can deliver yourself from it. And there is a moving line here, as I've said. The second from the bottom moves, and it moves to hexagram 16, contentment. Now, in the Wilhelm translation, this hexagram is called enthusiasm, but in the Greg Winkup translation, it's called contentment, and maybe contentment is better. So as we move into Sunday, probably moving into Sunday, I kind of take the view with these weekend I Chings that if there is a first and a second hexagram, the first hexagram is more about Saturday, the second hexagram is more about Sunday. That's how I normally do I Chings. I do kind of take a chronological view. Maybe that's not the right approach, but so Sunday is more about contentment. Could be enthusiasm. The point is we're feeling comfortable. Perhaps after whatever we've done on Saturday, we're feeling comfortable. We're feeling things are going to get better. We feel that we've achieved something. But the important point here is not to be complacent, because if we think about it, we know that our feelings of comfort are temporary, because we know that if we're not careful, things could get difficult again. We know that this is just a break. We can gather our resources and get ready for the next part of the challenge. So don't let contentment become complacency. because what we need to be doing is we need to start preparing for the week ahead. And now is a good time to do it because we're feeling, we're feeling comfortable. We're feeling content. If you take the Wilhelm translation, there's a certain amount of enthusiasm. It feels that things are going our way. It feels that things are going to get better. Things are not necessarily going to get better, by the way, because we're going to actually have to do something to make sure that they get better. So although we might feel content on Sunday, I would urge you not to be lazy. I would urge Sunday to actually be a day of preparation for the challenges of next week. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to look at King Charles's horoscope. I'm not going to spend long on it. So King Charles's horoscope. It's very difficult for me to keep calling him King Charles. He still feels like Prince Charles. But this is his horoscope, and so the question is, what's going on in his life, and I suppose one thinks that the big trauma and drama in his life is his relationship with his son Prince Harry and his daughter-in-law Meghan, and if you want to look at Chiron, you notice that he's got Chiron in the 5th house. I'm sure other people have noticed this. As you know, I'm not a big fan of Chiron. Chiron is this tiny comet discovered in 1977 between Saturn and I think it runs between. Its orbit is between Saturn and Uranus. As far as I'm concerned, you don't really need to look at it in a chart. It can be skipped. But I do think that in King Charles's chart, that Chiron in the 5th house does really fit the symbolism. Chiron traditionally is about a wound, a real place where one is hurt. And he has Chiron in the 5th house, and so I think that is the damage that's been done to him caused by Prince Harry. Oh, okay. On the other hand, it's not like King Charles is completely blameless here. According to the story, I don't know whether it's true or not, when Prince Harry was born, then Prince Charles expressed his disappointment that Harry wasn't a girl. So that's quite extreme, and I think Diana was aware of that. So perhaps he's kind of set the problem up for himself with that. Anyway, there is his Chiron in the 5th, and there is his Sun on the 5th house cusp. And I think that Sun in Scorpio is relevant because throughout 2023, Uranus on and off has been making an opposition aspect to his Sun, and that's perhaps the drama, with Harry. And at the moment, the Sun has left that point Uranus has left that point. Uranus is going retrograde, back through sort of mid-late Taurus, but Uranus will come back to make that opposition with the Sun. That's gonna happen in the spring. So there are going to be continuous dramas there. With Harry, that is simply not going away. Also, Saturn is he's about to have his Saturn opposition. He has his Saturn at 5 Virgo in January. Saturn will be at 5 Pisces. So that's something that's that's something he's going to have to deal with. So as far as his solar return, so he's just had his birthday a few weeks ago. So he was born on November the 14th. So we can set up Charles's solar return chart. So this is his solar return for 2023. This was a moment the sun returned to the place it was when he was born. So this is a chart set up on November the 15th, 2023. What is interesting about this chart is that the sun is conjunct Mars. In a solar return, if you've got the sun conjunct Mars, that suggests could potentially be a whole year of difficulties and drama. So if you remember, a few weeks back there was a Mars-Uranus opposition in November, and the sun was right on. There was actually a new moon on that Sun-Mars opposition. So that Mars-Uranus opposition is linked up with the sun, and it was happening at the time of Charles's birthday. So that does mean that Mars-Uranus opposition, all the drama, the violence, the anger of that Mars-Uranus opposition is hardwired into Charles's solar return. So unfortunately, that is going to be a theme of his whole year. And also Charles's solar return, it has Neptune on the 7th house cusp. So Charles's various relationships, including perhaps with the British public, are going to be a bit nebulous. He's also going to be perhaps vulnerable to deception. So when Harry and Meghan and whatever's, for example, going on in Endgame he's not really going to know how to respond to it. I think in that sense it's going to be very, very difficult for him. Now, I should point out that Charles is the British head of state. Now, he doesn't have any power. I mean, not real power. But in a theoretical sense, he does have a lot of power. But he is the head of state. So you could say that where Charles goes, the nation goes. And I do think that what's going on in Britain's chart, what's going on in Charles's chart is going to affect the country he nominally rules. So I think when we see this solar return, we may, to an extent, be seeing the solar return for Britain. This may be saying a lot about what's going on in Britain over the next year. And I think having that Mars-Uranus opposition lined up with the sun, remember there's going to be an election this year. I think theoretically the election doesn't have to happen until early 2025. I may have got that wrong. But I think the current view is that there's going to be an election sooner rather than later. And so, the build up to that election, all the stuff, everything else going on in Britain, this is perhaps a sign that Charles is king of an unhappy country. And, when I talked about Uranus going over his sun in April, I think it's April, that really may be affecting Britain, not just him. So I think that overall it's a very difficult solar return for Charles and for the country and for the country he rules. Now there is this question about whether this book Endgame is going to damage the royal family in any way. I said I don't really want to go into details because I'd have to I'd have to really look at it carefully and make sure I didn't get anything wrong. So I just want to sort of stick to generalisms in describing it. And I just asked this horary question. I asked the question, is Endgame going to damage the royal family? This was just my question. So I took the chart for the precise moment I asked the question, which was, I asked this December the 1st, 2023 at 8:45 a.m. in Washington State. In fact, I think I asked whether it would damage King Charles. So if you're dealing with a horary chart, this is you take the 10th house as the king. When William Lilly was writing in the 17th century, sort of during the English Civil War, he sometimes asked questions about the king, and he would take the 10th house as the king. So Charles is the 10th house. Okay, he's not just some other person who I don't know. I'm just asking about. He's the king of England, so he's the 10th house. So you can see here, if this horary, will it damage his reputation? Well, the South Node in astrology is about reputation. I think without doubt there is some reputational damage here. I mean, that this horary chart is kind of clearly showing that. And Charles is you could say that Charles is the king because he's conjunct the South Node. Because he's ruler of the 10th, conjunct the South Node. His reputation is not great, and also in sort of traditional astrology, the South Node is seen to be of the nature of Saturn, and it is negative. His reputation is certainly damaged by it, but you have to ask, to what extent? And there is a saving grace in this chart. The fact that Venus is in mutual reception by exaltation to Saturn. Now, I've been doing quite a few horary charts while Venus and Saturn have been in mutual reception, and this mutual reception has made all the difference. It has allowed me to make to be more fortunate than I was expecting to be, and I have found when I've done horary questions charts for clients that things have turned out much better for people than expected. Not because expected. I saw the mutual reception, and I was able to be more positive than I would normally be. Because of this mutual reception, and it has kind of worked out like that. And so Venus is in mutual reception to Saturn. And so because Venus is in mutual reception to Saturn, we could say that Charles is actually not Venus, but he's actually Saturn in this chart. And so this mutual reception sort of indicates that there is damage, but there are a number of ways in which he can escape from it. He can sort of get out of it. I think the damage is going to be slight. I think it's essentially pretty short term. I don't think that. I think this Endgame book is not quite as cataclysmic as some people are claiming, but still it has caused some damage. But yeah, I think it's by and large going to be fairly short term. I should really have talked about other members of the royal family. I did want to look at Princess Kate's chart, but I think I might look at her Kate's chart. What's her name? Princess Catherine, whatever. That's her formal name, isn't it? What's it? Princess Catherine, Princess of Wales, or whatever. I think I'll look at her chart in a few days' time. So I'll just stick to King Charles's chart in this video, and I will leave it there. Okay. Thank you for listening. Sorry I was a bit brief and vague on King Charles, but again, maybe in a future video, I will I will be more detailed. Okay, that's it, and I will talk to you again tomorrow.